Well, we've done wet on wet, we've tried dry brush, and now we're going to do the next section of our painting that's the farthest back. And many of you might think the water's the next farthest thing back, but really it's the sand because the water is on top of the sand. So we're going to be filling in the sand next. We're going to do a technique which you've already practiced, which is graded. Here you can see a couple colors that you're going to need to mix up. Yellow plus a little teensy bit of brown. It's triple underlined, so not very much. Brown plus a very little bit of blue. And yellow, a little teensy bit of orange, and a teensy bit of brown. Yellow, remember, is wussy and gets contaminated easy. Make sure you rinse out your brush every time you put your brush in the yellow. Otherwise, you'll get yellow, green, or whatever color you have on there, and it'll be hard to get rid of. And I'm not there to refill your yellow, so you need to be careful with it. All right, as you can see, I've mixed a couple up over here, right? To make it easier for yourself, we're going to paint this section and then this section. We're going to start off with doing a wet on wet, just real carefully, but a thin coat. Here with my big brush, I'm going to take it right up to the bottom of the trees, and I'm just going to do a very thin coat, thinner than what we did on the sky, making sure everything in the sky is dry. You don't want it to smear. So hopefully you've taken a break after doing the sky. All right, I've got it on. I'm ready to go. And now I'm going to take my lightest color first, and I'm going to put it up along the edge of the water. All right. Putting it up along the edge of the water here in the distance. A little bit more for the tip down here. Giving it a second to dry. Mine's a little wet, so I'm just going to spread it everywhere for a second. And then, if yours is a little wet too, like I have a little bit of a puddle after I put that on, I rinse my brush out, dry it off, pick up any little wet puddles. And now I'm going to take my medium tone here. I'm going to put that in the center and the back. You see how, because it's a little wet already, it kind of blends, which is nice. I'm going to take a little bit of the lighter yellow again and put it right here on the sandy bar. Make sure it goes right up to my ocean. Don't have any white spot in between. A little bit more yellowy orange in the front here. Now remember, it's going to get lighter as it dries. So even though it's looking a little dark, that's okay because it's going to lighten. Now I'm going to take the orange brown, right? I'm going to put that right at the back so we get it graded. Remember, you only want to go left to right with your brush. Don't go up and down, otherwise you'll ruin the graded. Make sure you're going into the trees some because it's really dark behind those trees. It'll help you out. Right? There's dirt under those trees, so that's okay. Adding a teensy bit more in here. You can see I'm just kind of tapping it along. Well, this is going from light to dark as it goes into the distance. Now we want to get this sand down here in the front. So if this is wet, mine's still wet, I'm going to make sure I don't drag my hands through it. All right? Put just a teensy bit of water on here using your big brush. Maybe I'll use a little less than last time. And now we're going to run it into the water some too. That's where it's going to get graded. So it's going to be like half sand, and then eventually we'll put water over the top of it so it looks like it's running over the top. Okay, I got a little bit in there. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to thin in the front here. Come along, adding sand. What if it gets too dark? Oh my God, it's too dark. What do I do? Rinse your brush off, dry it off, and then you just drag your brush and you can pull some of it up. You see how I just pulled a section of it up? Like that, you can just come back and soften it up like that. I'm okay though. I'll put a little more down here. I want it to get darker as it moves away back onto the beach. So I'm going to add more of this yellow-orange. That's why I mixed up a whole bunch of it. I'm almost running out here, but I have just enough. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the orange back here, kind of add it to the corner, and along the front a teensy bit. Let it kind of work its way into the other. Now remember, it's going to get a little bit lighter as it dries, so even though it might be looking, oh my god, it's so bright, you're okay. Alright, a bit more yellow in there. Now, I kind of don't want a straight line right there, so I'm going to take my brush and just kind of go over it like we did the clouds with the dry brush. You see how I'm just taking water and I'm softening the edge here? If yours is too dry to do that, that's okay. But if you still have yours wet enough and you end up having to be able to do that, that's okay too. Don't forget little corners. That corner. It's white. If it's getting all over your table, that's okay. Just wipe it up with a paper towel later and damp cloth. And I'm going to add just a teensy itty bitty bit of the dark color to the bottom corner. If it's curling like this, that's okay, and it's annoying you, you can put your fingernail down here on the paper to hold it down. Alright. If your paper curls and then after it's dry, and it dries curled, later on you can like bend it the other direction so you can flatten it out some. Watch out about your paper towel touching the edge of your paper, because sometimes it'll suck all paint off that you've spent so much time putting on off into the paper towel, because it's so absorbent. Alright, I'm feeling okay. Today we're going to start the last two sections of our painting, which is the water and the shrubs and bushes in the background and trees. And each one of those is going to take a couple different layers. So first I want to start out with adding another blue to our grouping. So we're not going to use the blue plus violet on this one, but we're still going to use the blue plus water, the blue plus yellow, and then a blue-green, right? It needs to be just on the verge of still blue and not going green, but you'll be able to see the green in it. And we put that in because there's a lot of algae and moss and things like that in the ocean, and it helps make a nice ocean color versus something that completely matches the sky, and then it'll just blend together in one big blue blob. We're going to put them on in several different layers to make a nice ocean. And actually, on our ocean, we're going to use all three of the techniques that we've been practicing on some of this. We're going to use a wet on wet, we're going to use a graded, and we're going to use overlap. We might even use a little bit of dry brush. We'll see how it goes. All right. Then in the back here, we're just going to use some different overlapping. So to start out, I'm going to put a graded blue that goes lightly this way with some water. Let's start out with that. I've got my blues up here and I've mixed them up according to my chart. And now I'm going to take my big brush, and it's a big area, that's why I'm using my big brush versus the little clouds when we went to our small brush. And when I get here and I'm putting on water, I'm going to make sure that I get a nice straight horizon line. You don't want it crooked. It'll make the whole painting look weird. So putting on a nice straight horizon line on there, and then wetting down my surface area with a thin coat of water. Try not to get any water up in here. It'll affect that if you get a wet patch up there and drying. So you want to make sure you don't drip into that area. You want to come up right to the edge of your sand here along the back area, go right up to the edge of it so you're just a little bit on top of the brown. So the water's just kind of touching it. So we can get the water to come down there. And it doesn't have to be super wet. I got a little bit of a puddle there. I'm going to use that puddle to get it wet down in here. Get a teensy bit more for up here. A little bit of puddle there too, so Don't forget to tilt your paper too so you can see if you missed any spots. And taking it all the way up to the front of the sand. Now here's the thing, the water runs over the sand, and a lot of, by the way, if your paper was really crooked and bumpy, like from the last time after it dried, you can flex it in the other direction before you start painting this, and it'll make it nicer to paint with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some water over the top of where I have a little bit of wet sand, and that will help us in the end. Just a real light layer. You don't want very much. Alright, now I'm going to start in the back with my blue-green. Right, mix that up so it looks, when it settles for a second, the blue-green will look more greenish because the green for some reason settles to the top. I got a big bump, so I'm going to stick my fingernail in here and kind of push it down as I go because I want to get it right along the back here. And now's your chance, you know, if you got any bumps or it didn't get quite up close to there, now's your chance to straighten any of that out. Taking your brush, going left to right with it. Don't go up and down. Down, not good. So you can see I'm spending a little bit of time here making sure I have a straight horizon line. I'll make it look nice. And I'm getting rid of any little white spots. Alright, now I'm going to go left to right as I come down this way. We want it darker in the distance, lighter as it comes to the front. And by going left to right, you'll get a little bit of kind of wave kind of action there. Don't start going down at an angle like this just because it curves there. Go left to right with your brush. It helps get the idea of water going on. There, I just got a little teensy bit of water this time with whatever brush color was left. Remember, it's going to get a little bit lighter, so it doesn't hurt while it's wet. You can come back in, add a teensy bit more up in the distance. Trying to make sure it stays dark up there. Don't want it to dry out down here though, so put a little water on my brush and then come back and go in and go along the edge here. Just so it's touching. I don't like that spot that went onto the sand, so I'll just take my finger and wipe it up there a little bit. And I'm trying to go left to right, but it is kind of do have to go along the edge of the sand. So, all right, now we're getting down here towards the bottom. All right, use a little bit of the bluish water, just a little bit of it. Change it up a teensy bit. Thin it out some so it's nice and thin. All right. Put a little bit more of it over here. Right. Left to right, left to right. Just moving it around. And now I'm going to take just a teensy bit of the bluish white and put it over the top of the sand, real thin like. Half water, half bluish white. I come back in and dip my brush in the water a teensy bit, kind of moving it around. You get a puddle like this, that's not such a bad thing. Sometimes you can control it to get it look like even more like a wave or something. So don't worry about it if you get one of those. So you see how I'm kind of pulling it in from the edge there. Ooh, wrong color. Alright, don't freak out, this can happen to you. So you see, I'll just come in, I wiped my brush off. I wasn't paying attention, put my brush in the wrong color. You see how I just dry my brush off and then wipe it up with the brush and then come in with a little bit more water and spread it around and it'll disappear. So I'm sure that'll happen to at least one of you guys. It always happens to me every once in a while. I don't pay any attention and do something like that. Alright, too busy looking at the painting, not busy enough looking at the palette. So you can see I'm kind of using just a little bit of this watered down bluish white. I actually put my brush in the water and then I kind of get a teensy bit of paint. And I'm putting some of it on, and now you can see I'm following those lines that I put on the sand to just kind of give the idea that it's draining back into the ocean. Right? There's even one or two spots I haven't gotten completely covered with blue. That's fine. Make it a little bit drier. The water went back there. Getting little white spots. I don't want them to stick out too much and draw the viewer's eye. This is looking a little bit light here, so I'm going to put just a teensy bit of blue down here so you get the idea the water's flowing there. You see now I'm coming back with just water, and I wipe my brush off on the paper towel so I don't get too much water, just a little bit. I can blend it in. So you can see how it starts to get it to look like it's coming up onto the shore. You don't want it too straight. I just realized I got this a little too straight, so I'm going to come back in. I'm going to see how I'm changing it up. The water never comes onto the shore in a straight line. And I got it too straight. So if yours was straight, fix it. A little bit more. See, I'm making it crooked on purpose. Dry my brush off, just like we did up in the clouds, alright? And then just kind of run my dry brush over the edge a little bit. Alright, I'm feeling a little better about it. Still a little too straight right here. I think I'm going to wiggle this out a little bit here. Alright, now we're going to let this dry. Then we'll do the next section.